Good Tuesday morning. Happy Mondays with Mark on Tuesday. Just wanted to share some gardening tips for you, some things we do at Green Bay Botanical Garden. I'm Mark Conlock, Director of Horticulture at Green Bay Botanical Garden. So a couple things that came up recently at the garden. Hey, we planted our veggie garden, you might have too. Well, now is a good time to put out your tomato cages. Don't have a tomato here, but you would put it around the little tomato plants. Step it in there, and then let your tomato grow up through it so that it supports the fruit that eventually come up there, keeps the plant off of the ground, so it lets for better airflow through there, so you have less, disease incidents. And the other thing you might want to consider is a light mulch of straw, wood chips even, or something to keep the rain from splashing soil onto the plants, because sometimes a lot of our diseases are soil borne, and if you didn't remove all that debris from the last year, they can splash up onto your tomato and fruits and cause issues the next growing season. So tomato cages, get them out there if you want them. And then remember, we planted a bunch of annuals and we showed how to plant them and do stuff, and you might have geraniums or other annuals. Well, a lot of these guys benefit from deadheading, which is cutting off the flower. So on here, this geranium flower that's mostly gone, I would want to prune off of there. And then this guy has all these buds here, so I leave him on, and that deadheading stimulates new growth, which is new flower buds, so you have flowers all season long. So a lot of annuals benefit from that deadheading, zinnias, marigolds, things like that you see those spent flowers on, because the annual wants to produce its seed and get the next generation going on. So when you cut that flower off, you keep it from seeding, and it keeps wanting to finish its life cycle in the growing season, which means producing flowers to produce seeds so that it lives for the next year. The other thing I like to do at the same time is prune off kind of some of the leaves that have disease or don't look so hot, or are dried out because I forgot to water at one time maybe. So you can kind of clean up all those leaves to help you have less disease problems throughout the summer months. So a little cleanup, a little deadhead, you can kind of do it as a little Zen-like experience every week actually too, to kind of keep up with everything. Another random thing, sometimes when you're out there gardening, you see over here, if Rachel pans over, we have some magnolias that didn't make it through the winter, so we're leaving them as a placeholder to replace. But now's the time where we're going to start taking those guys out and replacing them. So here's a Golden Shadows Pagoda Dogwood, was in the green and gold hosta garden, and it never did that great. You can see here, maybe it has this golden canker disease. So typically, if it's a golden canker, you prune 9 inches below where you see it. Well, that would be a chainsaw to the base of this guy, so we literally just ripped them out of the ground. So sometimes when you have a specimen that's not living up, now is also a time to say goodbye to that guy and put a new one in place, a new plant. So sometimes we get attached to him because we planted it, we grew it, but we live with a weird looking thing. So get rid of this hosta on a stick and move on. Move on with your life. Another big thing for this time of the year is weeding. So you can see maybe over here we have the geranium plant. Well, this is actually a seedling from the geranium that are up around the corner here. So what I like to think about weeding to get me motivated is I'm protecting my investment in other plants. So this aster here, it's kind of messed up. It is out competing it for water and growing really fast. A lot of times weeds can also harbor insects and disease. They might like that weed more than your plant, but then they jump to your good plant, your perennial that you put in from that weed. So that's another reason to get rid of weeds. Interesting thing here, we have a little ash tree seedling. So a lot of our ash trees, might be putting out a bunch of seeds to produce their next generation, just like the annuals, because of emerald ash borer. They're stressed out, they want to live for the next years. So here's black medic, which is a weed. For weeds, the annual weeds especially, you want to get rid of them, is because you don't want them to go to seed and produce seeds that are going to stay in your soil and then become a seed and weed problem in future years, because some of those weed seeds can last for a long time in the soil. So then all of a sudden now, instead of one weed, you're having to pull hundreds of weeds over multiple years. So keeping up with those weeds is a good thing to do. It can be tedious, but just think of it again as a relaxing experience, a way to get away from everything and just find some peace of mind and relaxation. So usually I use my soil knife, but I forgot it. I'm just using my hands And also after a rain is a good time to weed because they come out a lot easier and you can get the whole root without having to have a special implement or tool.
Mark, she didn't know she had to deadhead her marigolds. Is a marigold a good plant to deadhead as well?
Yep, a marigold is a good one to deadhead. You know, you could actually even save your seeds from a marigold too. I'm not sure if they are true to type all the time though, but you'll see a thing is if you forget to deadhead them, it's kind of cool because you see the seeds form real easily in a marigold. But yeah, marigolds are definitely ones to deadhead.
Cool.
All right, the other thing I was going to mention was weeds, more weed stuff quick. Just remember we talked about the garlic mustard back in the day. But that's like one that you definitely want to get out. You know, I'd use my knife better, you know, if you see it, because that can become a humongous invasive problem. The other thing that all this weeding in this area here, this is part of the Matt Schmidt Garden, Magnolia Grove at Green Bay Botanical Garden. Well, it's also like a stormwater channel for the stormwater to come off of our Wong Pavilion and some of the pavement there, and then it comes down to this kind of dry detention basin. Well, with warmer temperatures, the atmosphere can hold more moisture, which means when it cools down, cooler air can hold less moisture, so we get more rainfall events. So with a changing gardening climate, something you might have to consider in your own yard is having more water tolerant plants installed. So this is a really interesting little sedge river, so carex or sedges can take moisture, so we have a lot of different species of them in here. And then we also have great blue lobelia to give us a pop of color. And then a more garden plant like a hibiscus we planted in there too to give us big, huge saucer flowers later in the year. So whether you have an ornamental plant like a hibiscus or the great blue lobelia, which is native, or the different sedges which are native, think about incorporating nature-loving plants into your garden as we start to get rainfall.
So, Mark, with all the weeding that someone can do, there's a lot of space that might be left over. Is this now a good time to plant more annuals?
Good question, Rachel. Well, if you turn around here, you will see one thing that's good at this time of year is you're weeding, you're seeing things maybe that didn't make it through the winter or did make it through the winter, especially now that our bulbs die down here at the Botanical Garden. So we had these buddleia here, butterfly bush, that we tried last year. But a lot of them didn't make it through the winter gaps like we saw with the dead magnolia tree there too. So the other kind of cool thing we're doing here is that we're using the dead ones to mark where the new ones should go so that we don't have to measure anything. Because I'm very meticulous about my measuring, as people know, so we're using the old plant as the marker, so that's something you can do at home too pretty easily. Yeah, so those are just some of the ideas that we have today here at Green Bay Botanical Garden. For more tips, follow us on Facebook or check out our website, gbbg.org, and have a great day.